I'm Kevin Addix with the Maryland Wineries Association, and with me here is Drew Baker from Old Westminster Winery and the new Burnt Hill Vineyard and project and everything else. Drew, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Glad you could make it. I'm not Jim Bachman, the normal host. I'm filling in for Jim, so excuse the weird lighting and everything else.
Kevin, are you in your basement?
I'm in the opposite. I'm somewhere where neither kids are Zooming with their schools and the wife is not Zooming with her work, so I'm hiding in the back somewhere. So Drew, thanks for being here mid-COVID. Tell us, for anyone who is kind of uninitiated and doesn't know about Old Westminster, give us a background on that, and then jump us to Burnt Hill.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So first of all, the timing of this interview couldn't be better. My daughter just went to sleep. So I think about 15 or 20 minutes ago, there would have been some distractions in the background. But yeah, so happy to be on. Old Westminster Winery, quite simply, is my family's farm. It was born out of a vision to sort of usher in a next generation project, save the family farm, if you will, build community, make products that we were proud of, that brought people pleasure, that brought our community together. And out of that business, good land stewardship, resource management, and looking after people in need. So really, there's some core human values behind Old Westminster Winery, and I think that's what we're most proud of. And the fact that we make some delicious wines is a benefit. And so right now, today, I'm in the kitchen in the old farmhouse at Burnt Hill Farm, built in 1890. And so Burnt Hill Farm, the Burnt Hill project, is the next chapter in our story. And while Old Westminster Winery is very much a reimagination of the farm that we grew up on, Burnt Hill Farm is really the result of my sisters and I, Lisa Hinton, our winemaker, and Ashley Johnson, our general manager, coming together and trying to figure out what was next. And so we sought out a place to grow grapes and a farm that had a meaningful story that we wanted to tell. And so for us, that's Burnt Hill. We think we found it. It's a really incredible old farm with a tobacco barn built in the early 1900s and big rolling hillsides. From the top of the hill, you can see 40 miles. And we worked with a geologist to understand the soils and felt like it's just a really perfect place to grow grapes in our region. And so we're excited to usher in a new generation here. But again, part of, an integral part of what we do is not only make great wine and take care of our land well, but work to build community, build a team, help those in our community. And I think that has only really become front and center in light of everything that's happening with COVID. So even while we're working from home, we're taking wine orders on the internet and delivering wine to people's doors safely and collecting donations for our local food bank while we're out on the road, which has been a tremendous success. Setting aside a dollar of every single bottle of wine that we sell to do charitable work, altruistic work. And this year we're on pace to donate more than $50,000 as a result of our wine sales. So we're really proud of that. And I think that's what we're all about in a nutshell.
That's a heck of a lot.
It keeps us busy.
Well, it keeps you busy, and not to mention you and your siblings have all started families, and you've got live animals running around, and I mean, this is
increasingly. At the beginning, we have more animals at play than we did when the pandemic started. So something about being stuck at home has allowed us to catch up on all of the crazy plans that we had, but we're just too busy for.
Yeah, I saw, let's all get quarantined and hey, let's get some pigs.
Right. Pigs, chickens. We have 4 beehives, a growing apiary. So we're staying busy.
So go back a little bit. So when Old Westminster began, what were the grape varieties that you were focused on? And you not only grow your own grapes, but you make use of a lot of other neighbor vineyard grapes, and you vineyard designate the wines, which is very cool.
Sure. Which is just so that combination has long been important to us, and even now that we have 2 farms online with between the sites, about 23 acres of grapes, and we were supposed to plant 6 more acres this spring and 6 acres next spring, but because of COVID, we pushed all of our planting to next year. So we'll put in another dozen acres next spring, which will put us up into the mid 30s acreage under vine that we own. But working with other vineyards in our region, collaborating with other farmers, looking for, Maryland is called America in miniature. As you know, it's known for being a geographically small state, yet quite diverse, not only in terms of its residents, but also in terms of its geology and microclimate. So if you drive 45 minutes in any direction from Westminster, Maryland, you can be in a quite different place. And for us, it's about making delicious wines that tell a story that is uniquely Maryland, and incorporate a diversity in grape varieties is integral to that, and also site selection. There's a lot of different soils, and we like to learn those soils and how they express themselves in finished wine. So that collaborative nature with other farms is something that even as we grow our own farming footprint, we are pretty emphatic that will continue.
So I love the concept of focusing on your own grapes and focusing on the agricultural aspects of it. But you mentioned in your introduction about how you're focused on the community, and part of the community is a very broad Maryland wine community. So we've got vineyards throughout the state who are producing or new vineyards who are trying to grow grapes and may not get a large commercial crop, but may have some to sell. And Old Westminster has been and has become known for working with these vineyards and bringing their crop to fruition into a beautiful wine, small production, vineyard designated. And we've seen that from vineyards all around the state. How do you find that and some of them are wineries as well. So you're getting fruit from other wineries. How is that relationship? How does it play out? And what are you seeing from the market?
Quite well. I think for us, I think having your expectations known upfront, no ulterior motives, and just understanding that ultimately what's good for the geese is good for the gander. And so that's what we've long set out to do. We have made wine in sort of an alternating proprietorship or custom contract winemaking for other burgeoning grape growers and winemakers that have gone on to start their own operations, and we're so happy to have been a part of or a step on their journey. And then other producers have made wine on their own and peeled back their production for one reason or another, and we have been able to make good use of a beautiful fruit that they've long been growing successfully, and that's been great. And then we have other folks that are just commercial grape growers who are growing grapes on a commercial scale to sell those grapes to winemakers. And I think we offer a compelling value proposition to those growers in that, frankly, we pay a premium for fruit. Our pricing is often in excess of what the market norms are bearing in Maryland specifically, and we're proud of that, to pay well for fruit. And also with our vineyard designations, when you have a particular farmer who has a good site and puts a lot of time and energy and effort and emotion into growing grapes, to have vineyard designation on the bottle is I think compelling to them. And so that combination of things, I think, just from a raw production standpoint, is another good example of how you can go about growing grapes, making wine, and building community at the same time.
What's been the biggest surprise in terms of grape varieties that you've worked with?
Boy, so we are just to go down the rabbit trail, the rabbit hole a little bit. We are, I mean, at Burnt Hill, we have a fair amount of biodiversity here, and are taking a new look at mixed heritage, multi-heritage, hybrid grape varieties, as well as Native Americans, planting a grape called Catalba, which actually has historical biological roots in Clarksburg, Maryland, which is where Burnt Hill Farm is. So it feels obligatory to understand and tell that story anew. And then we're also growing a fair amount of hybrids on a very good hill site that I think common consensus would have been over the last 2 decades that that's a good site. You should plant vinifera there and just save the bad land that you can't grow anything else for hybrids. And for us, we just think there's an opportunity to tell a sustainability story in growing grapes that have biological roots in America and are thus less susceptible to mold and mildew and fruit rots, et cetera, and can be grown on a good site where they can make the best wines possible with low to, in some case, no inputs. And, for us, growing vinifera on the hill right next door just highlights exactly why we're doing this. It's quite evident in front of us. And I think as, the world changes quickly in so many ways, it's increasingly important to seek out resiliency in nature. And I think that is what we're doing there. In terms of surprises, I think a pleasant surprise to me and to the industry at large is the quality wines that can be made from surprising grape varieties. I love Cabernet Franc, I love Petit Verdot, I love Albarino. They make great wines. There's no surprise there. But that we can come out and make, really I think of Vidal Blanc just won the Governor's Cup in Virginia last year. And there were plenty of folks that almost snickered at that. And I celebrated. I think it's an exciting thing. And it shows what happens in a blind wine competition when people can't bring their bias to the table. They taste the wine and you say, which is the best one here? And for me, I think it's great.
Yeah. Wine's a great wine.
Yeah, and it's a great wine, and it was made with a lot less copper and synthetic pesticides than probably the other wines on the table. So I think that's compelling too.
Yeah, I've always been under the impression that hybrids in the Mid-Atlantic have been mistreated. They've been underestimated. They've been treated like the crazy uncle that you invite to the party, but don't really engage with the way that you would the other vines. And we've, I've from wineries who've begun to treat their Chambourcin, their Chancellor, their Vidal Blanc, their Saval, Chardonnay, as they would the other varieties you mentioned, right? Albarino and everything else. They're making amazing wine. So sure. I'm really anxious to see what happens when you give them star treatment at the top of the hill.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think that you're exactly right in terms of treatment and preconceived ideas. And I don't mean to turn this into, a hybrid evangelist session. However, I think you're exactly right that on vineyard sites, so often, traditionally a vigneron would look at a hill and say, I want to grow Cabernet Sauvignon or Syrah or Merlot. And they plant it and then they realize that they're wildly unsuccessful and it's not turning out how they hoped it would. So they say, okay, what else? I guess we could try some Chardonnay or some Albarino, something that's a bit easier to get ripe, Sauvignon Blanc, and it all dies to winter kill. And then they say, okay, it's a lousy site, screw it. I'll put in some Chardonnay and it'll all be fine and it'll take care of itself. And then they're, surprised when not only do they have a crop, but it with a little bit of TLC can far exceed, their original expectations.
So we've discussed a little bit about varieties and some of the relationships you have with other growers and winemakers. I want to touch on and hear your take on your creativity and entrepreneurship over the years in terms of trying new things with wine and introducing previously underrepresented or unrepresented styles.
Yeah, sure. So for us, it's always been about making products that we enjoy drinking, and hopefully other folks like them as well. And that's sort of our MO, and it's worked out. So essentially, we just try to make delicious products that tell a story. And originally, early on, we very much colored within the lines because, well, that's just the way this is supposed to be done. And so we did it that way. And I think as we became more confident and learned a bit more who we are and what's important to us, that started to reflect itself in our production. And so now there are far less rules in our cellar. Our fermentations are a bit more wild, if you will, with native yeast ferments and less makeup on our products in terms of additions and sort of heavy-handed winemaking techniques, and which traditionally make wines that can be quite delicious and predictable and clean and great. However, we would like to make products that have a little bit more of a rustic, authentic edge, even at risk of being written off as a sort of an old school farmhouse style product, with flaws and all. And for us, frankly, it's okay. And we have built, again, a community of consumers that are drawn to that sort of rustic authenticity. And so for us, there's no rules. We've released products that are made from both grapes and apples, wine cider hybrids. We make use of everything that comes through our cellar. Green fruit, early in the year, we make verjus to acidulate wines and cocktails and etc. And then at the end of the process, after we've pressed grapes, we immediately hydrate them with water from our farm and make a product called Paquette. And Paquette, quite simply, is again, an old favorite of farmhands in Europe, where a farmer is resourceful and may not be able to afford much, but would like to have a drink at the end of the day. And the best way to do that, and the least expensive way to do that, would be to take freshly pressed grapes, rehydrate, and make a refreshing low alcohol product that could be drank all day without being inebriated while you work. And so we've taken that and really reimagined it in a modern sense and made some really fun products in bottles and kegs and cans, etc. Anywhere that you would want to take sort of a refreshing low alcohol type wine product with you. And so we've kind of like pulled all of this together and I think broadened the interest in what we're doing. Instead of, it's not about being all things to all people. It's just about sort of exploring all of the different avenues through which we can express our own interests in wine.
There's been wine in amphora. There's been, pet nat. You were the first ones to really roll that out. Lots of images of you with swords opening bottles.
Well, to go back and tell the pet nat story quickly, there's an article, I'll send it to you, that was just recently released. But that was born of a trip when my wife Casey and I got married in 2014. We went to Europe. We eloped and we went to Europe for a couple of weeks, rented a car, did a road trip. And our first stop was in the Loire Valley. And we stayed at this Airbnb at a winery in Vouvray, and hit it off with our hosts. And they were small-time winemakers. And we had sort of expressed sort of who we are and our interests and what we were doing on the East Coast of America. And they pulled out a special bottle of the Ancestral method sparkling wine and said, we don't sell this, but this is an ode to our heritage. And this is a wine that's made from just grapes. We pick them, we crush them, it ferments on its own, we bottle it. And it was just like fizzy and authentic and amazing and delicious. And that was the first time that I had ever bumped into this style. And I immediately came home in that next fall. We're making pet nat because that was an incredible experience and something that we wanted to put, our own fingerprints and a Maryland spin on.
So curiosity here, you eloped and then you went to France, or you went to France and you eloped?
We eloped and then we went to France.
I mean,
Yeah.
What a better way to celebrate, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It was a honeymoon of sorts. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it. So you've got all these styles. You have a kind of an unending palette of grapes because you're willing to use not just your own and try very interesting things with them in addition to traditional wine, but you're able to source from other wineries and other vineyards around the state. So you've got one of the larger palettes to work with of all of the wineries in Maryland, which is pretty cool.
For sure. And I think that we express that also in our willingness to and inclination to work increasingly with apples. And while I've got 22 apple trees here at Burnt Hill, including one really old apple tree that makes some great apples for cider. Erin Brothers, who is my sister Lisa Hinton, our winemaker's assistant winemaker, she and her family have an orchard just over the hill in the same Westminster zip code as Old Westminster Winery. And she went to Virginia Tech for enology and worked at wineries out on the West Coast, wanted to come home. She's Lisa's assistant winemaker. She's an incredibly talented young woman, and her family has 90 acres of orchard. And so we started collaborating with them and making hard ciders on a very small scale in neutral French oak wine, previously used wine barrels 4 years ago. And we've increasingly built up our cider production program, and not just as cider as a side project, but seeing it as a Maryland fermented fruit, and not only making ciders, but also incorporating it into our winemaking program and sort of blurring those lines, which I think increases the palette, as you said, in terms of what we are painting with, and also allows us to sort of, I think, express what Maryland is all about and what I think Maryland is all about in new and creative ways.
So you've really, as I noted, you've kind of been on the forefront of trying new things, and I've been excited to see other wineries take up some of your methods and some of your concepts, and of course with grape varieties and blends, kind of follow along. You've won a couple of the competitions in the state, which I was excited about: Governor's Cup, Comptroller's Cup, and beyond. Tell me though how you get the wine out there. So people come to your winery, and they obviously get introduced there and try the wines and hopefully fall in love and buy. You've got a wine club, but from there, I mean, I've seen you guys in 5-6 other states hawking your wines. So how does distribution work? How are you getting the word out?
Yeah. So, wow. We sell wine in 15 states now, outside of Maryland, and it is only being held back by production, and particularly allocations of certain products which are most in demand in other states, and that's primarily not only because they are delicious, but also because they lack counterparts. So, for example, we grow Chardonnay in our home vineyard. We make 400 cases or so each year. It's a delicious estate wine. Really proud of it. We sell it out every year to our wine club and on our farm. However, it has no market outside of our local market, because there is no shortage of great Chardonnay for $20-something a bottle in the world. It's seemingly endless options. However, our Pet Nat Orange Paquette is a bit more. It's a bit more of a unicorn, and it's delicious and fun, and people see it on Instagram and they say, "What is that? I've never seen that. I need to try it." And there's only one place to get it. And it has, as an example, a single product example, it's opened a lot of doors for us. And through that door, we have brought along several other wines that we make that we're equally proud of and have done well in surprising markets like New York and California and Maine and Illinois and Florida and Georgia and Arizona, Texas. So we have a really nice, diverse distribution footprint. And fortunately, because of the nature of our products and the fact that we don't really Our wines don't find themselves competing toe to toe with big brands or big business. They are sort of like indie style products. It puts us in a position where we are able to sell the wines with ease, and we don't have to have so many people in the market competing and doing discounts and all of that sort of stuff, which is quite necessary to compete with the big players. So we've kind of found a nice little spot in the market for ourselves, and we're proud of that. Typically our tasting room is open 4 days a week, and folks from DC and Maryland come out and visit. That has not been the case for going on 7 weeks. And so we have relied increasingly on direct sales via our website predominantly and through our wine club. And, I have been really thankful for the reception and support that we have received from this community that we've been building over the last 10 years. And so we've been doing a lot of home deliveries. And, while it's not quite the same as getting that opportunity to interact and connect face-to-face in our tasting room, it's the next best thing, and we're thankful to have it.
How important will it be to keep delivery? Keep that
paramount. Because we're seeing continuously that the future and how safe it will be in the coming 6 months or year is, the story changes daily. And even when we enter phases 1, 2, and 3 of the reopen Maryland plan, which I'm being told are coming, there are a lot of folks that are at higher risk and will not be able to participate in the market the day that it reopens. And while they are staying safely at home as they should, it would be nice for them to have access to local wine and beer without having to leave the safety of their home. So I think that's increasingly important. And also, I think that as we've built up our own home delivery, I think we've realized, frankly, that we do it better and more safely and more consistently than FedEx and UPS and third-party carriers that we've been leaning on out of necessity up until this point. And I don't think there's any argument that FedEx cares more about a particular product and understands the implications of that product, particularly alcohol, than the manufacturer thereof. So we're quite careful. We care a lot, not only about the product, but about our customers that have gone on our website and ordered that product. And we're happy to safely deliver it to folks' homes, send them a text message as it sits on their door, provide a little handwritten note thanking them for supporting us and wishing them well. And it's just, I think, a really good, situation, a silver lining, if you will, in an otherwise difficult time.
Drew, the delivery driver.
I've been making a fair amount of deliveries myself, though I'd be remiss if I didn't really give a shout out to our team members, none of whom had delivery driver in their job descriptions 7 weeks ago, and all of whom spend the majority of their time delivering wine and answering emails related to wine delivery now.
Always read the last line of that job description
and anything else that comes up.
Right? Can you lift? Can you drive? And everything.
Right. Yeah.
Drew, I heard a rumor that off to your side there might be a bottle of wine.
Oh yeah, I've got a special little unlabeled Ancestral method sparkling wine. It's 3:30 on Wednesday, so I don't have the worst job in the world.
No, you do not.
Yeah, so thanks for joining me, Kevin. So with these pet nats, this is a great opportunity to, it's not unlike a bottle of kombucha. It's best to, in my experience, to burp them, as I like to say. And that just simply means when you go to remove the crown cap, do it a little bit at a time, especially if the wine is not cold, because it is a living product and can be under more pressure, I guess less consistent pressure than that bottle of Prosecco or champagne that you typically buy at the store. And there's a reason that during the Industrial Revolution, the wine world moved away from the ancestral method and towards the tank method and the traditional method because of the consistency of product, which is important. However, we are sort of captivated by the idea of returning to the authenticity and sort of spontaneity of simpler times. So that's what this product is. So I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I do not know exactly what this is.
My question.
Yeah. So I think this is our home vineyard Chardonnay. But what so we have a fair amount. So we do experimentation, even in-house, beyond the experimentation that you see out on the shelves. And that involves really refining our processes with this ancestral method. And just because it's farm style rustic doesn't mean that we are just like sort of like shooting in the dark. We're continually testing and trying and learning, bottling at different densities to make sure that we can try and get the most consistent product that we can. And this bottle of wine was one of a few that were bottled at different densities to test the resulting carbonation levels. And so I'm pretty certain that this is our home vineyard Chardonnay, and it's quite delicious.
So tell me, just remind us the process of a pet nat.
Sure. Pet nat is the easiest of all sparkling wines to describe. You pick the grapes in the vineyard by hand, in our case, bring them into the winery, and we tend to do whole cluster press, even though often we will destem and put the fruit into the press and let it macerate for a few hours overnight at most. And then press the juice to tank with a little bit of skin contact. We let it ferment spontaneously. So fermentation is quite simply the process by which yeast consume sugar and turn it into alcohol, heat, and CO2. Heat is always dissipates into the environment. CO2 often does as well, except for in the ancestral method, which involves bottling some 7, 10, 14 days after the fermentation begins and before it finishes. And we bottle it in a sparkling wine bottle that looks like this, under a crown cap or a beer cap. The fermentation finishes in the bottle, and the CO2 that results from that fermentation process is thus trapped in solution and carbonates the wine. And that's a finished product. So this wine, even as I opened the bottle, I don't know if you can see this, but there are some lees in the neck. So proof that it is undisgorged. So this, what I just described to you, is all that this wine experienced. So it has not been opened until right now, since, within 2 weeks of when the grapes were on the vine. So for us, that's just kind of like a cool process by which we're able to make wines that, again, have that authenticity and that lack of makeup, because in the winemaking process, there is a tremendous amount of manipulation often that happens, particularly in larger commercial wines. And I don't say that to point fingers and fault. It's just a statement of fact. And frankly, there's plenty of consumers that will tell you, and they're entitled to the opinion that, you know what, I just like a clean product that tastes how it should every single time. I don't like the inconsistent. I don't like products that are cloudy and unfiltered. Yeah, we still get emails from customers that say, hey, this wine was cloudy. Is that safe? Is it supposed to be like that? So it much less than we did 4 years ago when we started venturing down this path. And really, I think we have other beverage categories to thank a lot for helping us along, because people are comfortable going to their Whole Foods or Harris Teeter and buying kombucha off of the shelf, or buying cider or even hazy beers that are less manipulated, kind of funky, keep cold. Or one of my favorite breweries is called The Vale in Richmond, Virginia. And on the back of their cans, they have a little sticker and it says "Keep cold or die," which is kind of funny, but it's basically a stern warning, if you will, that it is not a shelf-stable product and you need to keep it cold to suppress fermentation or it will explode. And while we don't sort of take that approach exactly, I think that there is something to be said. It's just like comparing fresh produce to frozen veggies. It's not a function of, it's unfair if your takeaway from that discussion is only the shelf stability and lifespan of the product, because wine, there are products that need to be age worthy, and we make those products, but there's also plenty of wine and there's plenty of situations in life where it's fun to drink something that is young and bright and vibrant and spontaneous, and it's nice to have both.
Drew, so first of all, I'm filled with envy right now that you have a bottle and a glass of that in front of you. How quickly
I would care if I could, Kevin.
Yeah, how quickly can you deliver?
If you order wine on our website, what's today, Wednesday? We'll deliver it to you on Friday.
Okay, great. Know that, everybody. Know that. Get your orders in.
Yeah, so we, with our home delivery, just to give you a little, just to give ourselves a plug, if you will, on our home delivery, you can order everything on our website. Our web store is more up to date than it has ever been. And we are doing deliveries every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you order on a Tuesday, for example, it will likely be delivered to you on Wednesday or Friday. So it's pretty simple. We deliver to all of the central Maryland counties, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Carroll, Frederick, Howard, Montgomery, Anne Arundel, PG, and Washington, D.C. each Friday. So that's what we do. And then also, when you hop on our website and place an order, you will be encouraged if you'd like to make a donation to our food bank. So when we're out on the road, we take off with a car full of wine, and we make all of those deliveries, and we come home often with a whole car full of donations. So we have made 4 completely stuffed pickup truck runs to our food bank with donations from our online wine customers, which has just been really fulfilling for us. And then I think also for our customers, giving them an opportunity to shelter in place and stay home safely. And folks are being told that that's the right thing to do by society, but also wanting to help and realizing that there are people out there that are unable to do that and that rely on things like school lunch programs, and they're not getting them right now. And food banks are having a hard time being well supplied and staffed. So being able to do a little bit of good while safely receiving some wine and staying home has just been, I think, a heartwarming and fulfilling sort of culmination for everyone involved.
It's a nice gesture for you guys to make. So we have a couple of comments. The first is from Kara. She's ordering right now.
Oh, yay. Thanks, Kara. I appreciate you.
Good work, Kara. So there's a question from Jenny about your Paquette, and that's what is the alcohol content and residual sugar of the Paquette?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It varies. It's just a function of starting density or the amount of sugar that's left in the freshly pressed grapes when you rehydrate it, and with how much water you rehydrate. So it's really just a function of ratio. All of our Paquettes tend to be in the 5 to 9% alcohol by volume range. Sometimes we blend back into Paquette with wine to give it a little bit of guts. And or verjus to give it some acidity, because while the secret weapon of our Paquette is the deep well on our farm, it's quite hard water. The pH of our water is only 5.7, where 7 is neutral. If you're on municipal water, the pH is quite near 7. Ours is at 5.7, which is, it's fairly sour water, and acidity, low pH, is really important for wine stability. So we're able to add water without driving the pH through the roof. So that's kind of a secret weapon. Residual sugar is, for the most part, near zero, because we allow the yeast that are naturally on the grapes to consume all of the remaining sugar, and it ferments out, conceivably to dry or near dry.
So another question that's come in: what about wine and food pairing? What do you guys recommend in your pitches, or is it kind of like find a wine you like, find some food you want to drink it with, and go for it?
That's really the camp that I'm in, and I think in the conversation, you've kind of picked up the tone and tenor of where we are. And Joey Fox, who is our sommelier on staff, he's worked with us for 4 years. Joey and I actually met at the B&O Museum the first year that we tasted there, which had to have been like 2015.
That's probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. That's when we met, and we were pouring our very first Pet Nat Albarino. That was a result of that trip, the story that I told at the beginning of the show. And Joey walked up, and I guess at the time he was 21, and said, "Wow, this wine is really cool, and I'm interested in wine, and I work at the Wine Market Bistro in Baltimore, and I've never seen like an Ancestral method sparkling wine, especially made in Maryland. This is so cool." And he was like, "Can I have your email?" And the next day he emailed me and said, "If you're ever hiring, I'm interested in working with you and learning and being a part of this thing." And now he is our Maryland sales manager and sommelier. He's an advanced somm on staff. And Joey can handle with no sweat all of our tasting notes and pairing recommendations, and offer just like really detailed thoughts about wine and food pairings. So I don't pretend to be a certified somm. For me, it's just about drinking wines that you like, that tell a story, with food that you enjoy, hopefully in good company. And I think that pleasure element is the most important thing in wine, and often, understanding wine and food and its history, and how it sort of is intertwined with the human experience over the last millennia, I think is really fascinating, and it's cool, but ought not get in the way of just enjoying good company and good food and beverage.
We have some other comments from a different feed here. A couple folks saying hi. Carol Ann Gartland, surprised that the wine's not chilled, but I've enjoyed the Pet Nat chilled, very, very chilled, and then not chilled. And then my favorite comment so far, thank you, Michael Kaiser, suggesting that I need a mustache. I think it is a compliment to your mustache.
Oh, thank you. I was waiting for that. I am a big fan of words of affirmation, so whatever I need to do to get them.
You have to grow the mustache.
Right, exactly.
So
this whole thing, yeah.
So what's your relationship with restaurants? Do you sell to any restaurants?
We do. Yeah, we have great relationships with restaurants. In all of our markets. However, at this point, it's almost exclusively through third parties, except in Maryland. And in Maryland, Joey manages those relationships. So as our Maryland sales manager, and a certified somm, and Joey, he also previously, even up until recently, was working one shift a week at Farmhouse in Baltimore, which is, he was working a Wednesday night shift, and it was really one of these sort of like rising tide floats all boats situation. They were trying to build up their Wednesday nights. Joey was working Wednesday nights, and so we did Westminster Wednesdays at Farmhouse. And so every Wednesday, Joey would go down. He would bring fresh wines, barrel samples right from the cellar, unlabeled products, and he would bring one mixed case of whatever he wanted to serve that particular week, and they would do sort of Westminster Wednesday till sold out. So it was kind of a cool little fun, thing that we did every Wednesday up until we didn't. So up until recently. Yeah. So things that, the relationship is a fragile one now, mostly just because a lot of our friends in the food and beverage industry are on hard times. And there's a lot of establishments that if not for the ability to quickly pivot into a direct-to-consumer home delivery, ideally curbside pickup as sort of a second best option, then you don't really have a way to sell any product. If you're tied to a brick and mortar and traditional patronage, it's not happening right now, and it's sad to watch. And frankly, I know that this isn't the point of our conversation, but I don't think it's coming back anytime soon, if ever, because if by ever I mean anytime in the near term, because. Just because the way that, lease structures are written, capacity and sort of ability to turn tables and get a certain critical mass of customers through an establishment is predicated on the business model. And if you reduce the number of people out of public health necessity, it's important. I'm not suggesting we don't do it. I'm just saying it's going to change the equation dramatically. And I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we have partnered with the Restaurant Association this week. And thank you for that segue. So we're doing a promotion, a Maryland Wine and Dine promotion, where we're encouraging folks to please go find a favorite restaurant that maybe you haven't been to in a while. And if they're offering carry out or curbside, please patronize them and then grab a bottle of Maryland wine. I mean, that's kind of the point. And Jim was so good to set up all these little whiz bang things. So we're asking people, if and when they do find a great bottle and find a great meal, and again, it can be pizza with Cabernet, or it can be pet nat with salmon. Who cares? Just or pet nat with steak, which I did once, and it worked.
It sure does, right?
Good, bubbles and meat. I like it. But yeah, we're asking people to share it just to help spread the word, because as you said. Our industry is in a bind, but it's nothing like how restaurants are. So
it's true.
With that, Drew, any closing thoughts for folks? Anything you want to say about the new project or how people can sign up to learn more?
Yeah, sure. We're just making wines that we believe in, building community, trying to be good stewards of our resources. And we're so thankful for each and every person who supports us by purchasing our wine. And right now, the best way to do that is on our website. We donate $1 of every single bottle of wine that we've ever sold at retail for altruistic work. And we are also accepting donations to our local food bank as we make home deliveries. So it's an opportunity to not only get some great local wine, support a family business, but also support the community more broadly, especially those that are in greater need. That's kind of what we're all about. And so just appreciate y'all for watching, and thank you for your consideration. And also, like Kevin said, I think it's really important to support other businesses that are in your community. Any business that is in the service sector, specifically restaurants, but also hotels and tourist-based companies and transportation. It's really, really hard right now. And I know it's tough to feel bad for business owners, and especially, when each and every one of us is feeling this in our own specific way. However, small family businesses are the backbone of this country, and it's really important that we all do what we can when we can to help support this and a longer term recovery. So thank you all. Appreciate the time, Kevin, and it was good to join you today.
Yeah, Drew, thank you so much for being on, and everybody else will be back next Wednesday for another Wine Wednesday. And stay tuned. It sounds like we're going to be entering some kind of a reopening phase soon. So buckle up. We'll see where this takes us. So, yeah. Drew, thank you. Thanks for everybody for joining us.
Appreciate you all. Take care.
Take care.